Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Millionaire Millennial. I'm your host, Stack Banks, and you are now tuned into the most powerful financial podcast in the world. So, for those of you who have been listening, we've been discussing blockchain technology, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies quite a bit recently. And we are deep diving now into a series where we're going to actually look at the history of blockchain and Bitcoin. And hopefully that will allow you guys to have some type of base level education when it comes to understanding the crypto market, what you're looking at in the crypto market, what blockchain means if you're just a pure absolute beginner, what is cryptocurrency, and all those things. And hopefully you guys will find some value out of it. Today I'm going to be reading a couple things from Imran Bashir's Mastering Blockchain. It's a book. It's basically specifically about distributed ledger technology, decentralization, and smart contracts. Those of you who want to do your own research and don't want to listen to the podcast, or maybe you just want to follow along and get some of this information yourself without me actually finding it for you, it's a great book. There's a bunch of others that I'll be referencing throughout this series, but the goal of this series basically is to try and give listeners as much powerful financial knowledge as I can within about 20 minutes or so. And the long format shows will be dedicated to guests and other entrepreneurs that we bring on. So let's just dive right into it. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know about blockchain technology, Bitcoin specifically, because it was the first cryptocurrency use of the blockchain technology and really introduced a lot of great concepts and things that without you guys having this knowledge, it will probably make it difficult to understand other cryptocurrencies and other blockchains, or even understanding what a blockchain is, what's the difference, and all that. So, excuse me, but we're gonna dive right into it. So, blockchain was introduced with the invention of Bitcoin in about 2008. Its practical implementation occurred in 2009. I've talked about that before, where I believe it was 20 Bitcoins were sent to a pizzeria in New York, and that was the first exchange for Bitcoin that was ever recorded. So, yeah. So we're gonna go further into depth in that. So the concept of electronic cash or digital currency, it's not new. Since about the 1980s, electronic cash protocols have existed, and those are based on a model proposed by a guy by the name of David Chaum, or Chaum. I forget how to pronounce it exactly, but it's spelled Chaum. Just as understanding the concept of distributed systems is necessary to comprehend blockchain technology, the idea of electronic cash is also essential in order to appreciate the first and astonishingly successful application of blockchain technology, i.e., Bitcoin, or more broadly, cryptocurrencies in general. So, two fundamental eCash system issues need to be addressed, and that's accountability and anonymity. And anonymity, such a hard word for me to pronounce. But basically, with accountability, it's required to ensure that cash is spendable only once. You run into what's called the double spend problem in cryptocurrencies, and you want to make sure cash is only spendable once, and it can only be spent by its rightful owner. Double spend problems arise when the same money can be spent twice. As it's quite easy to make copies of digital data, this becomes a big issue in digital currencies, as you can make many copies of the same digital cash. And anonymity is required to protect users' privacy. As with physical cash, it's almost impossible to trace back spending to the individual who actually paid the money. So, David Chaum, excuse me, David, if you're listening, if I'm mispronouncing your name, but David Chaum solved both those problems during his work in the 1980s by using two cryptographic operations. So, namely blind signatures and what's called secret sharing. So, we'll talk about these terminologies later on when we get into like symmetric cryptography and public key cryptography and all that stuff. But for the moment, it's just sufficient to say that blind signatures, they basically allow for signing a document without actually seeing it, and secret sharing is a concept that enables the detection of double spending. uh, and that's using the same eCash token twice, like we talked about before. So in 2009, the first practical implementation of an electronic cash or eCash system named Bitcoin appeared. The term cryptography emerged later, or excuse me, cryptocurrency emerged later. And for the very first time, it solved the problem of distributed consensus in a trustless network. It used the public key cryptography with what's called a proof of work mechanism to provide a secure, controlled, and decentralized method of minting digital currency. The key innovation was the idea of an ordered list of blocks composed of transactions and cryptographically secured by the proof of work mechanism. And I'll go more into what the proof of work mechanism is later on. Now, other technologies used in Bitcoin, but they existed before its invention, including Merkle trees, hash functions, hash chains, all those concepts and things. I will go further into depth for those of you who are aware of these ideas at a later point. But this is just to give everyone listening just a very sort of brief understanding of what went into Bitcoin and blockchain technology in the early days. Current blockchains and cryptocurrencies and NFTs and things like that may utilize some of these technologies for those of you listening, but they're not required to, and it's not something that they're all striving to. There's a lot of different companies and technologies and projects out there that are doing some really interesting stuff that has deviated away from what most people think of when they think of traditional Bitcoin blockchain. So, um, in 2008, there was a groundbreaking paper. It was entitled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And it was written on the topic of peer-to-peer electronic cash under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. So in the Bitcoin world, cryptocurrency world, Satoshi Nakamoto is famous. He's essentially what many would like to call the inventor or developer of Bitcoin. He's not the sole person that worked on it, but he was the first person, at least publicly, to introduce this idea to the world. So he wrote this paper, Bitcoin, a peer to peer electronic cash system, and it introduced the term chain of blocks. So no one knows the actual identity of Satoshi Nakamoto. And after introducing Bitcoin in 2009, he remained active in the Bitcoin developer community until about 2011. He then handed over Bitcoin development to its core developers, and he just simply disappeared. Since then, there's been no communication from him whatsoever, and his existence and identity are shrouded in mystery. The term chain of blocks, excuse me, evolved over the years into the word blockchain. So that's where you guys get the blockchain technology, hashtag blockchain, all that stuff from the term chain of blocks in the original paper. So, as stated earlier, blockchain technology incorporates a multitude of applications that can be implemented, in various economic sectors, particularly in the finance sector. Significant improvement in the performance of financial transactions and settlements is seen as resulting in desirable time and cost reductions. So, blockchain outside of currencies where practical use cases will be discussed in detail for various industries like later on in these series. For now, it's just sufficient to say that parts of nearly all economic sectors have already realized the potential and promise of blockchain and have embarked or will do so on the journey to capitalize on the benefits of blockchain technology. So basically, for the layman, blockchain, its definition really, blockchain is an ever growing, secure, shared record keeping system in which each user of the data holds a copy of the records, which can only be updated if all parties in a transaction agree to update. Now, your technical definition for blockchain is a peer-to-peer distributed ledger that is cryptographically secure, append only, immutable, which means basically extremely hard to change, and updatable only via consensus or agreement among peers. So we're going to examine the preceding definitions in more detail, and we're going to look at all the keywords in the definitions one by one. Okay. So the first keyword in the technical definition of blockchain is peer to peer. That means that there's no central controller in the network and all participants talk to each other directly. This property allows for cash transactions to be exchanged directly among the peers without a third party involvement, such as by a bank. So, blockchain allows you to exchange value with anyone that you know that uses the blockchain network, right? You don't have to go to your bank and ask for them to transfer money over. You don't got to go to your mom. I mean, unless you're a minor and you don't have control of your finances or something like that. But it is the first system to allow human beings to do that. So another keyword within that definition is distributed ledger. So when we go to dissect the technical definition uh, further, you reveal that blockchain is a distributed ledger, which simply means that it's a ledger spread across the network among all peers in the network, and each peer holds a copy of the complete ledger, right? So when you look at Bitcoin, you're able to see who's been sent Bitcoin, how much Bitcoin is out there in its totality. Everyone's got the same thing. It's not like, there are bits of the information hidden from you. So, um, we also use the term cryptographically secure, right? So we see that this ledger is cryptographically secure, which means that the cryptography has been used to provide security services, which make this ledger secure against tampering and misuse. These services include non-repudiation, data integrity, and data origin authentication. Okay, so for those of you who are into symmetric cryptography, at some point I may touch on that. Most people are not, but that is one of the attributes of Bitcoin in and of itself, is the fact that it's cryptographically secure. Okay, so I also said the word append only in the technical definitions, and most of you probably don't know what that means. So that's another property that we encounter in Bitcoin, or excuse me, that we encounter, is that blockchain is append only, which means that data can only be added to the blockchain in time ordered sequential order. So this property implies that once data is added to the blockchain, it's almost impossible to change that data and can be considered practically immutable. Um, Nonetheless, it can be changed in rare scenarios where inclusion against the blockchain network succeeds in gaining more than 51% of the power. And there may be some legitimate reasons to change the data in the blockchain once it's been added, such as the right to be forgotten or the right to erasure. Um, that's defined in general data protection ruling. Um, However, those are individual cases that need to be handled separately and that require an elegant technical solution. So, for all practical purposes, blockchain is indeed immutable and cannot be changed. Hackers. There have been a few examples since blockchain's inception where people have been able to compromise certain blockchains, but it's incredibly, incredibly difficult. But we'll move on. So updatable via consensus. So finally, the most critical attribute of a blockchain is that it's updatable only via consensus. And this is what gives it the power of decentralization. So in this scenario, no central authority is in control of updating the ledger. Instead, any update made to the blockchain is validated against strict criteria defined by the blockchain protocol and added to the blockchain only after consensus has been reached among all participating peers or nodes on the network. So if you're someone who participates in the Bitcoin network, you would be considered a peer or a node on the network typically, whether you're a miner or someone who just holds it. Like I said, each blockchain is different, but in order for a new hash or a new Bitcoin or whatever to be recognized, shipped throughout its blockchain, it has to be recognized by the entirety of the network. And that's basically to assure consensus. So to achieve consensus, there's various consensus facilitation algorithms to each blockchain. Some of them use, completely different ones. Some of them, because of the open source development nature of blockchain, some of them, or of the development community, excuse me, not because of the open source development of blockchain, the open source development of the blockchain community. It's a tendency that some blockchains do have similar code. And so this is not something that's necessarily unique, but, or excuse me, unique at this point in time, but upon inception, this was incredibly unique. So, to achieve consensus, there's various consensus facilitation algorithms which ensure that all parties are in agreement about the final state of the data on the blockchain network, and they resolutely agree upon it to be true. So, consensus algorithms are discussed later. In this series, more than likely, it's something that we will go into. Right now at the moment, I don't think that you guys need to know the specific algorithms per blockchain or uh, Bitcoins versus any others. But the things that I just went into, the consensus, the updatable via consensus, the append only, the fact that it's cryptographically secure, the distributed ledger, and the fact that it is peer to peer, those are basically the basic elements of cryptocurrency and blockchain and Bitcoin specifically. Okay. So when you look at all of the cryptocurrencies that are out there, more often than not, they are seeking to mimic or replicate or do the same thing, but do it better when it comes to all of the things we just talked about. And that has proven very hard for a lot of them. Some of them do it better. But as time goes on, these will be the things that actually allow cryptocurrencies to stay because they solve massive problems for human beings. When in our not only peer-to-peer systems, but just in our daily lives, right? Being able to take third-party systems out of the scope of what it is that we need in our lives to accomplish, value exchange, right? So being able to eliminate fraud or the bank charging you fines for your money not being there, or um there's a vast array of problems that are being solved by cryptocurrency, and these are just a few of the features that started this whole this whole craze, if you will, right? These were the things that the large financial makers and markets of the world started to recognize that these things are unique to Bitcoin, right? Your cash does not do this. So I won't bore you guys too much longer. Like I said, this was just sort of a technical rundown of cryptocurrencies. What is blockchain and what are some of the features? And we will go into that more in depth as time goes on. Right now, I'm going to end this episode and then let that be that. And then you guys just look out for in the future. We're going to have a lot of exciting guests on. Excuse me if I've been coughing into the mic or clearing my throat. I'm getting over being sick, but we're going to have much more exciting guests on in the future. Entrepreneurs, people are going to bring you massive, massive value. Please like, share these episodes. If you get value out of them, let us know on our TikTok, Instagram, or anywhere that these are posted, Spotify, Apple Music, all that. And let us know who you want to see come on, what else you want to know about, what's helpful and what's not. And look out for these episodes, every Monday and Friday, or, every occasion I do miss a day because my schedule is quite busy, but we will be posting these up twice a week. So look out for them. If we don't catch you Monday, Fridays, it might be Tuesday, Saturday, something like that. But I try to basically do a beginning of the week rundown of some info that will be of use to you guys, and then a Friday wrap up of what I've seen go on in the crypto markets, the markets in general, anything that I believe is of value or of use to my audience. So once again, thank you so much. My name is Stack Banks. This was the Millionaire Millennial, the most powerful podcast, financial podcast on the planet. Please, please, please save your money. Look out for sharp investments, smart investments. Look after yourselves and do your own research and stay informed. Thanks.